Here is how to fix Achilles tendonitis in 5 minutes to run pain free. I've used this exact method to help hundreds of runners who are struggling with pain and stiffness right in their Achilles tendon get back to pain free running. And I want to share with you the my best tips for Achilles tendonitis treatment success, the exact exercises that will only take 5 minutes out of your day, and what mistakes you will need to avoid in fixing Achilles tendonitis. And if you stick around long enough to this training, I'm going to share with you the one hack that will help get rid of that stiffness feeling that you feel that first mile of your run. So if you're feeling pain and stiffness along your Achilles tendon in the morning that worsens with running up hills or going downstairs, and you've tried icing, resting, stopping running, and taking some anti-inflammatory medication, but you are frustrated that the pain keeps coming back whenever you try to run faster or build back those long runs again, this training is for you. Now, let's get started with my best tips for Achilles tendonitis treatment success. With an injury to a tendon, we know that the structural changes that are occurring to the Achilles tendon is consistent with tissue injury and can include both degenerative areas and reactive areas. And this is where there's this ongoing healing, or what we call fibrosis, that occurs. And this is why resting, icing, and taking days off of running has not helped you so far. Basically, the structure of the tendon is not only inflamed, as you think of a tendonitis, but there's this healing that's occurring with collagen that's getting laid down. So normal collagen in the Achilles tendon is what we call type 1 collagen. It's nice and strong. It's layered in a fashion that allows the tendon to function normally. But when we have Achilles tendinopathy, what we find is that the body's trying to heal itself and it's throwing down this kind of type 3 collagen, which is basically aligned where the fibers aren't aligned properly. It's kind of mismanaged, it's thinner, and it's weaker. And that is why your pain keeps coming back when you put stress on the tendon. Number 2, treatment keys for success is controlled movement. Seems to be the key for health of tendons. So we want to avoid immobilization for long periods of time. So if you've been told to go into a walking boot, that's going to be super rare, and it's only going to be for a circumstance that is very high tissue irritability, high pain levels. This just occurred. You can hardly walk because of the pain. Then you go into a boot. If that's not you, then immobilizing it is actually going to do more harm than good to the tendon. Number 3, make sure that your joint, so your ankle joint, has full motion. So you can actually do some self-ankle mobility. There's a great exercise with a band that actually you can get that video within the Achilles Blueprint download. And then number 4, we want to address the contributory factors to find out why you got this Achilles pain with running in the first place. And by the way, if this is our first introduction, first off, welcome. I'm Dr. Duane Scotti. I'm a running physical therapist, coach, educator, and founder of Spark Healthy Runner, creator of the Healthy Runner podcast. And my mission is to preserve the health and longevity of runners everywhere by allowing them to get stronger, run faster, and enjoy lifelong injury-free running. And thinking about the Achilles tendon and contributory factors, one of the biggest things that I often see in all of the runners that I work with on a one-on-one basis is looking at flexibility, mobility, and strength of the muscles above and below the Achilles tendon. So some common culprits that I find is glute strength, hamstring strength, and deep foot muscle strength is usually limited. And it's usually not any fault of your own. You just didn't know that you actually had to focus on strengthening those areas because you probably thought that you're running, you're using your leg muscles, they're getting stronger because you're a runner and you're running, right? No fault of your own. But unfortunately, over time, as we are in our middle-aged years as runners, we do need to put some emphasis to these specific muscle groups in order to actually decrease your Achilles pain for good. Now, to get more specifics on Achilles tendonitis treatment, I do have a download about all of this. It's a runner's guide to conquering Achilles tendonitis. And it's really going to help you be able to run healthy without Achilles pain. And I share with you the specific strategies to get back to running without pain. And I give you the specific exercises. In this download, you're going to find out, like, what is Achilles tendonitis? What causes Achilles tendonitis? What are the symptoms of Achilles tendonitis? How it's diagnosed, how to treat Achilles tendonitis immediately, and then how to treat chronic Achilles tendonitis, because I know most likely you found this video because you most likely have it for a while. And you're going to want to pay attention to that because it is vastly different in how we treat it in the acute phases. And then most importantly, at least from my standpoint as a running physical therapist and coach, is how do we prevent this from coming back? So you can like crush that next race of yours without having to worry about your Achilles pain coming back. And these are the true tried, tested strategies that have kept all the runners that I work with on a one-on-one basis running during their recovery, and then finally saying like, peace out to Achilles tendonitis for good. So click the link that I have for you in the show notes to get your free download. Now, what or why is exercise the best treatment for Achilles tendonitis? It is well known that our tendon cells, which are basically what we call fibroblasts, respond to mechanical stimuli in the form of strain that is depriving them of kind of that stress and strain that it needs, which actually leads to degeneration and eventually cell death. So we do know that there's basically this mix match of too much strain and stretching becomes detrimental. So if you've just been like stretching your Achilles because you've been told you have tight calves, tight Achilles, it feels tight, it feels stiff, right? It feels stiff. So naturally you would think I should stretch a stiff, structure. Too much is not going to be a good thing. We really need the optimal stimuli to the tissue. And how we do this is with controlled loading. So we want to promote tissue repair to the actual tendon by loading it with specific strengthening exercises. And this process is called, like, the science term is like mechanotransduction. You don't need to know that, but it's basically this physiologic process where the cells are responding to mechanical load. And there is a proper progression because we want to avoid overloading, but we want to load enough to stimulate healing. So we're actually stimulating healing of your tendon by adding this mechanical stimuli through specific strengthening exercises where you go from unloading the tendon to controlled reloading to progressive loading. So that is how you want to think about healing this tendon using exercise. And you might be wondering, like, can you start actually strengthening exercises if you still have Achilles pain? Because you might be thinking, if I'm still feeling pain, then I still need to let it rest. And now it's been 2 months. Now it's been 6 months. Some of the runners I work with, it's been a whole year that you haven't been doing anything because you still have pain and you think you're not ready. Your body's not ready. Now, that is not true. Your body is ready to start strengthening. And what I really utilize is what we call a pain monitoring model. And I've modified this. So this is like my Spark pain monitoring model that has been adapted from the literature from Cybernagel and Crosley, 2015, big kind of paper on Achilles tendinopathy, and changed really how rehab professionals actually treat tendons. And with this pain monitoring model is we are expecting you to have some discomfort with strengthening. So you do not need to be pain-free because we really want to actually allow your body to adapt to the stresses so it can start to heal. And pain is allowed to reach a 5 on a numerical pain rating scale from 0 to 10. 0 is no pain, 10 is the worst pain imaginable, during your strengthening or during your activity. And that's considered anything less than that's like the acceptable zone. So in my Spark pain monitoring model, 0 to 3 is going to be the safe zone. So that's like green light. Green light means go, right? You're safe. 3 to a 5 is going to be yellow. We're in the acceptable zone. And 5 to 10 is going to be like the red zone. So this is the high risk zone. All right. So just kind of putting that in some context for you. So the pain's allowed to reach a 5. The pain after completion of your strengthening exercises or your running is allowed to reach a 5. The pain the morning after the activity should not exceed a 5 on this pain rating scale. And the pain and stiffness is not allowed to increase from week to week. So you don't need to actually be pain free in order to actually start strengthening and loading the tissue, as I'm going to talk about right now. So how do we fix Achilles tendonitis in 5 minutes? It really depends upon the type of runner you are. So I am going to give you 3 different scenarios, and I'm going to need you to participate in this because I need you to determine which one of these best describes your scenario and what you're going through. So the first scenario is going to be runner A. All right. So you're the A runner. Your pain levels might be a 7 out of 10 at worst. You're going to have some pain probably going downstairs. So if you live on a second level floor in the morning, when you get up in the morning and you walk downstairs to go start the coffee maker, like you're going to be feeling pain with that just going down the stairs. You're going to feel pain walking around after you're sitting for a prolonged period. So maybe you have a desk job and you're working on your desk and you go to stand up and you start feeling that pain in the back of your ankle. And you're most likely not running right now because you're thinking about your pain during your everyday activities and you don't want to even try running at this point. So the goals here in this scenario is active rest, meaning we need to decrease the load on the tissue. So we don't want to avoid loading the tendon entirely, but we want less load and we want controlled loading. So if you're in this scenario and you might have tried doing calf raises because you watched a video and you were told that calf raises are the best thing for Achilles tendonitis, and it's not helping, then that's because there's too much load. So this is where we need to control the load and we need to avoid overloading the tendon, overloading the tissue. If you're in this phase, then if you're feeling that 7 out of 10 pain with running, then we need to actually back off of that right now. I'm not saying stop running totally, but you might be able to find a proper run walk strategy to allow you to do a little running that allows for this controlled running. And the 5-minute fix for you in terms of exercises is going to be a single leg calf or heel raise with an isometric hold. So this is where you're going to actually raise up with 2 legs and then put your weight on the affected leg and hold it for 5 seconds. So this is what we call an isometric contraction of the muscle. So it's of the calf muscle. And we're actually loading your Achilles tendon, but we're not moving it through a range of motion. So there's not as much stress. This does not usually reproduce pain. And even if you feel it on the first or second rep, what we do find with isometric exercises for tendon pathologies like the Achilles is it can actually help from a pain control standpoint. And then my other rationale for giving you this is for tissue loading. We're starting the first phase of starting to load that tissue because you can't go from not running at all, being in a boot, not moving your ankle to trying to run because you've now gone from like 0 to 100. There are necessary steps that you need to take before you get back into running. So that's runner A. So think about, is that you? Are you runner A? If you're not runner A, then most likely you're probably going to be runner B. Runner B is someone who's feeling a pain of a 4 5 or 6 out of a 10 scale at worst. There might be some times where it's like a 1 or a 2. It's kind of achy. You might feel some pain in the morning, but it goes away pretty quickly within 5 minutes of walking around. And you're probably not feeling much pain during the day, but you do feel some pain at the beginning of a run. And then it kind of goes away in the middle of the run. And then you notice your long runs, it does come back at the end. Or you're noticing the next morning after a long run, you start to feel more stiffness that next morning after a long run, or if you try to push your pace. So if you try to run a little faster, if you try to do any speed work, like then you notice more pain. So your 5-minute exercise program to fix your Achilles pain would be one of 2 different forms of exercise to load the Achilles tendon. The first is going to be a single leg calf raise with slow lowering only, which we call eccentric exercises. So for this exercise, what you do is you would rise up with 2, shift your weight over, like we talked about for the isometric, onto the affected side. But now we're going to take 5 seconds to lower your heel down. And if your pain is kind of the classic, we'll talk about classic Achilles tendonitis, which is 1 to 2 centimeters above where the tendon attaches to your heel bone. Then you're going to do this off the edge of a step. So you can use your stairs, go below the level of the step, take 5 seconds to lower the body down. It's like feels painfully slow, 5 seconds. It feels like forever. And then you're going to come back up with 2 legs and then shift your weight over and then slowly lower the body down for 5 seconds. Now, in terms of reps with this, what I would recommend is that you perform 5-second lowering, you do 15 repetitions, and you do this for 3 sets with the knee straight. And then sometime during your day, also do this with the knee slightly bent. So that is going to isolate a little more of the soleus muscle. With your knee straight, you're going to be working more of the gastrocnemius muscle, the bigger calf muscle. Now, if you don't believe it, that sounds like a lot of reps, a lot of sets. And if you don't believe me that you can actually do this in 5 minutes, let's do a little math here. And I am no math whiz whatsoever. My wife's the accountant. So bear with me here, right? 5-second lowering. Maybe it takes you 1 second to come up with both legs. So now we got 6 seconds per rep. If we did that for 10 times, because I need to do like simple numbers here, right? That'd be 60 seconds. So now if we did it for 15, I could do that math. That'd be 90 seconds. So it's taking you a minute and a half to do 1 set at 15 reps. And I want you to do 3 sets at 15 reps. So that's going to be 4.5 minutes of exercise with your knee straight. And then at some point later in your day, you're going to do 4.5 minutes. So it's less than 5 minutes with your knee bent. So if you do that twice a day, every single day, this is going to be hugely beneficial for you in loading your tendon to actually allow healing of the tendon. Because the goal is we want to actually fatigue our muscle and the tendon toward the end, and you want some level of discomfort. So this shouldn't feel super easy for you. It shouldn't feel pain-free. And I'm imagining when you start with this, it's probably not going to feel super easy for you because you've probably been avoiding a lot of strengthening, a lot of running recently. So you probably got some weakness now in your calf muscle. So it's probably not going to feel easy for you. So you might feel some burning, you might feel some fatigue. With training, doing this consistently, that will improve. However, based upon the pain monitoring model that I mentioned to you before, that as long as you're in the safe or acceptable zone, so pain's not going above a 5, then you are going to want to proceed with these exercises. And you're not going to be magically fixed in a couple of days, by the way. Tendon healing takes weeks, if not months. So as long as you really meet that criteria I mentioned before and earlier, that it's not making it worse week to week, or you're not worse the next morning. And this is how you want to adjust how much load, because when it starts getting easy or you're not feeling any stress at all to the tendon, that's when we need to add weight. So we can use our body weight, But then how we progress from that, the easiest way to do this, by the way, is to not hold a dumbbell in your hand or a kettlebell, is to actually put a backpack on, put the dumbbell or kettlebell in the backpack, or just get a bunch of textbooks, get, I don't know, some big bags of rice, right? Carbs give you spark. So you can be able to put that load in your backpack, and that helps evenly distribute the load a little bit, makes it easier to do the exercise. And the other tip I'll give you is hold on for light balance. I get a lot of clients that want to do this with showing off their balance skills and they're wobbling all over the place. Like that is not going to load your tendon like you want to load it in order to facilitate healing. So hold on to something for light balance. I want you using your arms to help push yourself up, but take balance out of the equation. All right. So that is eccentric exercises, or the slow lowering. The other form of exercise that has been shown in the literature to be helpful if you are runner B is heavy slow resistance. What do I mean by that? What the heck is heavy slow resistance? These are basically tempo reps where you go up for 3 seconds, 1, 2, 3, and then you come down for 3 seconds, 1, 2, 3. We'll pretend those were in seconds, by the way. And you do this with as much weight as you can possibly hold, or you can put in that backpack. And this is going to do the same function as the eccentric exercises. It's going to add load to the tendon. So there are different protocols, different schools of thought. You can try one or the other. I tend to usually start with the eccentrics first, and then I progress to heavy slow, especially if someone's they just hate that 5-second lowering. They're like impatient. They can't wait. So then I'll go 3 seconds up, 3 seconds down. I also find if you have access to a machine that the heavy slow resistance, using a machine such as a leg press that has a flat platform, you can do your heel off the edge. You can kind of load it up. You don't have to worry about balance at that point. It's a little bit easier way to kind of do that heavy slow resistance is if you're utilizing a machine. So those are the two different types of exercise. I wouldn't do both at the same time. Pick one or the other, which approach you want to go with. Or if you want to start, like I do for most of my athletes, start with the eccentrics for maybe 4 weeks, maybe 6, maybe even 8 weeks, progressing your weight, making sure it's the appropriate load, and then change over to the heavy slow resistance approach. Now, the third runner, if that wasn't you still, and I haven't spoken to your specific Achilles pain, then most likely you're going to be runner C, right? So runner C is someone who's feeling maybe a 1, a 2, or a 3 out of 10 pain at worst, right? So it's like achy, stiff. You're almost like hesitant to even call it pain. You're just like, yeah, it's bothering me. It's not like the worst thing in the world. Like I can kind of ignore it. You're not having any pain during your everyday activities. And maybe you're feeling a little bit of stiffness when you first wake up, but literally within a minute or two, it's like gone, right? So you go to the bathroom, you brush teeth, do your thing. And then after a minute or two, you're like, oh yeah, I don't feel anything at all. And you're only feeling like a little bit of achy sensation when you try to push faster running, or you notice you're like running up hills, or at the end of a long run. And you really don't notice much in terms of it worsening after the run. All right, so this is runner C. So is that you? Have I described you? And if so, your 5-minute exercise program to fix your Achilles tendonitis would be a combination of 4 different exercises. The first is going to be single leg calf raise weight shifts. So for this, what you're going to do is you're going to basically go up on your tippy toes on both sides, and you're going to hold for 1 second, tap on one side, and then tap on the other. So you're basically tapping back and forth on each side, taking that load while you're on your tippy toes, essentially. So you're in this calf raise position. So you're kind of weight shifting now. It's not holding for any period of time. You're just going back and forth with the weight shifts. The second option for exercises, if you are runner C, is going to be double leg calf raises. So a traditional calf raise are what we call concentrics, right? So you can use a gym machine to be able to offload your body if for some reason utilizing just your body weight is actually increasing pain higher than that 5 that we talked about earlier. And you can also utilize machines to add more resistance than your body weight. And the progression would be doing this on 2 legs first, and then progressing to a single leg. And again, if you do have this traditional Achilles tendonitis, where it is 1 to 2 inches above your heel bone, you're going to go below the level of a step. The third exercise option is leaning wall single leg calf raise. I love this form as a late stage progression back into running because this position of your leg mimics the push off position of running, especially with faster running. So when you're adding in speed work, this is how you're going to strengthen that tendon when the tendon's in its elongated position, when your ankle is flexed, what we call dorsiflexion, and now it has to propel your body forward. So the leaning wall single leg calf raise would be utilized in this phase. And then lastly is we need to train the tendon to tolerate load plyometrically. What do I mean by that is jump training and doing these quicker rebounds or jumps or hops is going to help stimulate the load that happens when you run, because running is literally a series of hops from one foot to the other. So we need to train the tendon to function that way, rebound in that fashion. And this is how we load it for strengthening and to actually allow healing of that tendon. So my favorite Achilles specific plyometric exercise is what I like to call wall jumps. And what you're going to do for this is you're going to go stand close to a wall, put your nose literally almost on the wall. So you're right against the wall. Your hands are going to go straight up overhead. And what you're going to do is you're going to tap the wall with your hands. So you're going to tap, 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 and you're really just flexing from your ankles, because if you actually try to flex your knees, your kneecaps would smash into the wall, would not feel good, and you'll not be a happy camper. So going as close as possible to the wall will force you to jump strictly from your ankles, and that will actually work your calf muscles and load your Achilles tendon. So that exercise is necessary in order to get back to running. And it's usually the step that is often missed in most rehab programs. And when you go from like PT and they're like, yeah, go back to running, but you haven't actually loaded the tendon plyometrically and tested it first, built up the strength, built up the resiliency, and then you try to run and it's just like going back to step one. All right. So that is important. So if you're this runner C, then you have really 4 different options for exercises: is the weight shifts, kind of doing calf raises or concentric exercises, doing the concentric exercise when the tendon is in a stretch position, as in this leaning wall single leg position, or progressing to doing jump training and actually training plyometrically. So now I want to know, which runner are you? Are you A, B, or C? Can you please leave it for me in the comments below? Because I would love to be able to create more content specifically for what you're going through. And I do read all of my comments. Next, I am going to share with you the most common mistake runners with Achilles tendonitis make, and the one hack that will help you get rid of that stiffness feeling for that first half mile or mile during your run. But before I do that, if you're getting value from this and enjoying these tips, I would greatly appreciate if you hit that like button so I can continue creating free content like this, so you can maintain a strong mind, a strong body, and just keep on running. Now, the most common mistake runners with Achilles tendonitis make is stopping running or stop strengthening because you feel pain. As I mentioned before, this is counterproductive because you go through this start-stop cycle on and off, and you never actually make progress in healing the tendon, because you're taking away load and you're not loading the tendon, and then you're putting too much load on the tendon. So I want you to think about soreness is okay. And soreness and stiffness lasting less than 24 hours after you do your exercises or after you do your running is signs that you're actually loading it. And this will progress if you stick with it long enough. And you need to stick with it and trust me that you need to be consistent. So consistency is key with your loading exercises as well as your return to run program. Progression of tendon loading. Remember, you got to go from unloading to controlled reloading to progressed loading. Now, don't forget to get your download of your free Achilles Guide for Runners ebook that contains bonus video content of the exact exercises that I just mentioned to you that you need to be doing, whether you're runner A, B, or C, so you can actually heal from this injury and not have to stop running. Get the download by going to learn.sparkhealthyrunner.com or simply click the link that I have for you in the show notes. The one hack that I have for you, this has been like great, honestly, to get rid of that stiffness feeling for that first half mile or first mile of your run, is to simply do that single leg calf raise weight shift exercise that I mentioned for runner C, to do that right before you start running. So you can do your 5 or 10 minute dynamic warm up. My runners, I like to take them through my foam roll progression for runners, kind of increase some blood flow, get some mobility in the fascial system, go through a 5-minute dynamic warm up, right? So your movement prep. And now it's like a Achilles specific warm up because you're going to be tapping back and forth. What that's going to do is contract your calf muscles. It's going to bring blood flow into the tendon. So this tendon does not have a lot of blood flow to begin with and is really the reason why you tend to get tendonitis in this tendon. So this will help bring some blood flow into the tendon. It will help bring some load to the tendon, desensitize the structure. So when you start running, you're going to feel less stiffness. Seriously, give it a try. This has been a game changer. When I had Achilles tendonitis before, I tried this, and I've been trying it with all of my private athletes since then, and they report some great relief with it. So give it a try. Trust me, you won't regret it. And if you do give it a try, let me know. I would love to hear if that hack did help you. And honestly, it's been helpful for all of the athletes I work with in overcoming Achilles tendonitis to get back to running and doing what you love, like Amber, who really started to feel calf tightness and significant Achilles pain a couple weeks before she was able to run her first marathon. She was training for her first marathon. She continued to run through it, but every single step hurt. So she tried foam rolling, she tried stretching, she tried massaging it, doing Epsom salt baths, and it was to the point where it got painful to go downstairs, never mind run. She didn't wind up running that marathon. She was feeling miserable because she didn't only run to, run for marathons, but because, she really maintained her sanity, as she says, being a busy mom with children, a full-time working mom. And when we started working together, I was able to assess her running gait and identify the root causes of her Achilles pain. And we really started, or why that started happening during her marathon training cycle. And we not only were able to get her back to pain-free running, but she went on to actually run a half marathon by the time we were done working with her in the 16-week program. And then in her next training cycle, she was able to crush, finally, her first marathon, feeling healthy under the guidance of Coach Latoya on our team. Or Jason, who started running for mental health. He really trained through Achilles pain running the New York City Marathon, and he didn't want to have to do that again training for the Berlin Marathon. He had some serious goals of shooting for a 20-minute marathon PR and was hesitant to get guidance due to the investment. And he not only was able to complete a hard training block, which included speed work, and get over his Achilles pain. But Jason did go on to hit his Berlin Marathon PR goal. Or Katya, who had Achilles pain on both sides for months and was frustrated and how it was impacting her running. She implemented the specific exercises to rehab her injury that I kind of mentioned to you today. And she was so excited that she could basically not have to stop running and allow the tendon to heal. But she not only went on to pain-free running by the end of the 16 weeks, but she PR'd her half marathon by over 9 minutes and then went on to train and complete her first marathon in Chicago. And I also think of runners like Lindsay. Lindsay was a third-year PhD grad student who was battling Achilles pain. She just really liked to run 3 times a week just to kind of maintain her fitness, maintain her mental health. And she was having this Achilles pain for over a year. And she got so frustrated, she just stopped trying to run for like an 8-month time period. And that's when we first met. And I identified her specific weaknesses and running form errors that her previous PTs had missed. And Lindsay went from not running for 8 months to starting a run walk progression that I designed for her. And we actually got her to doing, like, her pain levels went down so much once we started loading that tendon that she was doing track workouts and 6-mile long runs before our 16 weeks were over. So these are just 4 examples from the hundreds of runners that I've helped with Achilles tendonitis, implementing kind of my Spark method of overcoming Achilles pain to grow as a runner. And they implemented the loading principles I shared with you today. And if you want to fast track your recovery and get the clarity and focus like Amanda, Jason, Katya, or Lindsay got, that's exactly what we do with our high touch point one-on-one Spark Healthy Runner coaching program, where I am your running physical therapist and coach all in one. And we work on getting you pain-free while keeping you running. So you actually don't need to stop running. You can learn more about our program by just going to learn.sparkhealthyrunner.com. And it's been really great sharing this with you today. My name is Dr. Duane Scotti. My mission is to save the lives of runners everywhere by allowing them to enjoy lifelong injury-free running. I'm the founder of Spark Healthy Runner, and this training was all about Achilles tendon loading, depending upon which runner you were, based on the severity of your Achilles tendonitis. And remember how I said earlier that we need to address the contributory factors as to why you got this pain to begin with. All of this Achilles loading will help the tendon heal so you have less pain, but it won't help you get back into running pain-free unless you strengthen your run-specific muscles. By clicking this next video, you get my top 7 strengthening exercises for runners that you can do in 25 minutes.